George Lees. George, are you with me?
Yeah, Sean, it's really good to be back again. And thank you for your help with that last video. I believe that the whole of my internet access has been disturbed because of the interview I made with you about Adolf Hitler. It's quite stunning that you can have that sort of thing happening. But what I want to show you today is that it's also happened with Donald Trump in America. YouTube banned a video that had for me 3,800 hits. It was on the air for 3 years when I was living in Kirknewton, and it tells exactly the same story, but that Donald Trump is from the same Spittal region in Austria that the Prime Minister here is from, and that is the Prime Minister that is not from here at all. He is Boris Pfeffel, the German. And I've got pictures of him and all of the bloodline trees and things, so we can try and get it published, but they will do their best. The New World Order in a massive state of panic now. That is almost everybody I meet in my local region at the moment, they're not allowed to go into the bars, but we now drink in the town square and thing. Every one of them has got a Lancastrian accent, and that is where John of Gaunt started off the creation of Hillary Clinton's family. They started the creation of the Percys of Alnwick, and they're from ancient Rome. That's Perseus the poet of ancient Rome. All of them are mobsters. That's the Alnwick families that murdered their own brother to get the title.
Right. Can you explain who John of Gaunt is to some of my listeners?
So he's an ancient character. He was taken and used by Shakespeare to be the basis for some of his dramas. But and that is, he descends directly. If I could get the family tree, I'll be able to read it off for you. That's the first thing we'll try and do.
Okay. Well, George, it's great to have you back. So while you're looking for the family tree, I just wanted to say that, what a stunning week we've just had. Is it as stunning in England and Scotland as it is here in Ireland?
Yeah, I believe it's because they are now realising that there is a sun god, and that is the sun god that has been neglected for so long. And I sort of correspond with him every morning, and now everybody's blowing kisses up into the heavens. It's fucking massive. But that's all that needs to happen to cure the world. Yeah,
that's 3 degrees out here.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely beautiful here, and I've got a bigger suntan than I've ever had in my life. And I'm able to impress the local women with my shirt off all the time.
Well, I wouldn't go as far.
Then let your wife look at the screen.
My wife and daughter are hidden away while we're doing an interview on a Sunday evening. I mean, come on.
Well, if you were to get her on another computer to look up the page on my website.
We haven't got another computer.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. So the title of the page that I'm referring to, if you could write it down or just listen to it as you replay it again, it's Donald Trump, Draft Dodger, Vietnam de Rhine, WW2, Roddenroth, Pie, Pimp, Percy, Pierce, MacLeod, Palestine, Johann Lewis, Exxon, Maples, Gascoigne, Genie, Oil, Chevron, Masons, Inc. That's the title of the web page. That is the first half of the genealogical story. The second half is the Forbes rich list that they are all descended from. Yeah, that is the Swiss families. Jim Fetzer has bailed out of every social media event that there is. He's from the Palatinate in Germany, and his hometown is where Air Force One had to refuel in the movie. So he's likely to be.
Before you go on, George, Jim Fetzer has a radio show and he interviews you and many other people. You're saying that he's a plant?
I believe he's on the other side. And that's why Greg Hallett, who used to make stunning interviews on the royalty with him, I believe that he's gotten the rough end of that man's stick. And it's all ultra cautious because all those Austrian families, he's actually Alsatian. That is Alsace, where the Bank of International Settlements, the bane of my life, is based.
Nice.
There's a wee bit of echo at your end now, but it's still quite good. Anyway, so
Sounds good.
So I'll just read off what the family tree is for John of Gaunt. So there's Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton revealed to be distant cousins, as family trees show they share the same set of royal ancestors. And there is Rhineland-Palatinate with Donald Trump to the left of that, and a woman called Hillary Clinton who ran against him in the last American elections. And they're getting ready for the next ones again now. And there is John of Gaunt, 1st Duke of Lancaster, Catherine Swynford, Duchess of Leicester. Now that is the Swynford families that used to work for Butlins. And Butlins, stunningly, I used to work for them as a fishing gilly on the River Tweed, right on the bloody border. And they are actually the emperors of Austria that are Bornemissa. The company name for Butlins is Born Leisure. Yeah, it's Born Leisure, and that on the Forbes rich list is Bornemissa of Austria. So they are the emperors of Austria to begin with, and they married the deputy head of Scottish politics now is Swinney. I believe he'll be on Catherine Swynford's bloodline tree, and the jockey that was the jockey in the Butlins stable, he was Walter Swinburne. He died at the age of 60, which is the Piso code number for the man. Yeah. So
did Walter Swinburne die, or was he sipping cocktails on a Caribbean island somewhere?
No, he had over 30 bone breaks in his career, and it's quite stunning. If you're a traitor to the ordinary people, the biggest example of that in my life is the man who used to be my hero is the Gladiator actor. He had 50 bone breaks in the making of the movie.
Right.
And that is 50 is the Piso code for none. Yeah. So they're all in the.
George, is the Piso code for what?
It's the Piso code. 50 means none, which is why all the double agents in The Great Escape, 50 of them escaped, and that means none ever since the Bible was written with the numerical code in it. And that is why when the camp commandant got to sit down with the boss on the British prisoner side, the British boss said, "Why are there no injured returning with the others?" He said, "All of them are dead," and that is that all of them were released so that they could be double agents. And that is the story of so Steve McQueen. He's Caracalla in the Roman bloodlines, and he is I forget what his role was in the movie, but he's the hero. But all of them descend from either Henry VIII or Victoria. And there's one of the Lancashire women. They're absolutely blotto, because I made the same video that I'm going to make with you with that friend of John Patterson's the other day, Andy Devine.
Andy Devine, yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about John now, because it was really terrible what happened to him. And
let me get this family tree, because you'll see how important it is. All of them are the mobsters that lead the cinema industry and create the mythology that they are the heroes on our earth. So there's Donald and Hillary in the last election in America. There is John Beaufort is below John of Gaunt, and John Beaufort is he's the Earl of Somerset, and that is one of the richest places in the Norman world. The whole of the south coast of England was filled by Normans, and that is the Earls of Somerset are some of the richest people on this earth, and their financial advisor is Kevin Cahill, and he pretends to be like you and me, a political activist, but he's actually the financial advisor for the Earls of Somerset and a woman called Queen Elizabeth of Windsor Palace.
Nice.
Yeah, and that is the man that we used to make interviews with because we thought he was a political activist like all the rest of us. Kevin Cahill, ask everybody that you interview next if they've ever made an interview with Kevin Cahill. He's the fucking financial advisor to Queenie.
I don't think I've ever interviewed him, to be honest.
All right. This was way back when Peter Eyre and those guys were in, the sort of squadron leaders.
Yeah, no, I heard the name and everything. Poor old Peter and Gordon Bowden and John were all on the show quite regularly, weren't they?
Uh-huh. So there's Joan Beaufort on both sides of the tree. Oh, no, sorry, it's a Joan on John of Gaunt's side, the male side. On the female side, it's John Beaufort, Earl of Somerset. Joan Beaufort is the Countess of Westmoreland, which is Cumbria, and that is a massive place in rebellious history. That is where the Butcher of Cumberland lived, and that is the massacres of all the Scottish people in the Jacobite Wars. And there is Bonnie Prince Charlie. He's on the Donald Trump side of the tree, and there is George Herbert Walker Bush, whose nickname was Poppy. He descends from Poppaea in ancient Rome, and that was Poppaea was the wife of what was the one who sent the Romans to the lions? Oh, it's Nero.
I was going to say Caesar, but Nero.
If you look up lions and Colosseum, you'll see Nero having a laugh up his sleeve at the killing of all the nascent Christians, because that is the whole story turned on its head. Those Christians have now killed every pagan, Indian, Aztec on our world for the wealth and the land grabs, and that makes the popes for Christianity the biggest landowners on this earth. That's Francis now, and it was Benedict, and he was in Hitler Youth with Miss Merkel. That is the massive joke that is Austin, the spy who shagged me, and I've got it. Oh, that is one of the trainees with Miss Merkel when they were training in Germany to become. She's been the longest lived chancellor of all. She descends directly from Adolf, who was her grandfather. And the pictures are all over my website if you need to look for them. That is the families that reared the baby after Schicklgruber Rothschild had sired it. All of them are their Kasner, and that is, I forget what that translates, but I think it translates to blunt or something like that. Oh no, it's Alois. So Kasner is the German version of Alois Hitler. Alois Nail, that's Jimmy Alois Nail. His real name is Bradford, but if they're born for greatness, you cannot imagine Jimmy Nail being born for that purpose, but that is why he's called Jimmy Alois Bradford when he was christened. But because he had an accident and fell on a broken bottle, that is why it went through his hand just like the nails on Jesus' cross. And that is their biggest laugh, because you'll see when we get down to Donald's parents, their middle names are Christ. It's absolute.
That's Jimmy Nail, though, because he was just in Aviva's Ain Pet, and then he was a singer with Crocodile Tears and a few other things. What makes him so important? I mean,
well, he's in the Don't Cry for Me Argentina movie. Remember that?
Evita,
yeah. So he's playing the role of one of the aristocratic people that run the slaving industry from all of the indigenous people that are not allowed to worship their own gods anymore. And it's absolutely brutal. If you watch Robert De Niro's in the movie about the mission, and when you watch the welcome that they get from the natives at the top of the waterfalls, it's really touching. And then they actually gun down, and it's the same for the My favourite movies, until I saw the scenes about the massacres, that was the Zulus featuring James Bond's actor from Scotland and Michael Caine. So
Michael Caine?
what is the most famous Bond actor?
Sean Connery?
Yeah, so he played the invading people in South Africa with all the women with their grass skirts and their breasts on display, and all of that is politically incorrect now, but none of those pagan people are left alive. So there's the family tree now. John Beaufort, Eleanor Percy, Countess of Northumberland, they've been there since they moved from Perch in Normandy, and that is the same, that is the castle on the Perch Norman Peninsula, and that is the joke that is the, can you remember the Thunderbirds comedies, cartoons?
I do, yeah. Lady Penelope.
Yeah, so they lived in a castle called, I forget what it was in the cartoon, but it is
it was an island, wasn't it?
That's it, Tracy Island. So, and every one of the images is bush-like, and that is because the bushes are not American. Yeah, they are. They went from Frankfurt in 1937 with Mengele and Joseph Goebbels. Scorzerni was the bodyguard for Hitler, and all of it is linked into an inventor called Tesla, and now that appears on the news because nobody understands what Tesla is, and it's now part of the computer jargon for the newsmongers.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I thought many people knew the history of Nikola Tesla.
So George W. Bush stole his secrets and got all the profit from the patents that he had, or had created the inventions for. And I believe that there is a real risk that they actually discovered what the gods used to communicate with themselves within their universe. We've down to Eleanor Percy, Countess of Northumberland. Next is Henry Percy, 3rd Earl of Northumberland. And above them, and above George W. and his wife, we've got Barbara Pierce. That's Percy on the left wing, and there is Barbara Pierce, married to the descendants of the Roman emperors that are Nero. It's absolutely fabulous. So let me move down. On the other side for Donald Trump, you've got John Beaufort, below Catherine Swynford, Duchess of Lancaster. She was a concubine, and I think she had 4 babies for John of Gaunt. One of them is the parental lineage of the whole of Donald Trump's tree. And there's massive links to Scotland. He's not very far. Lancaster's near Crewe, and that is their syndicate with the richest man in Britain that passed on. I don't believe he's passed on at all, but that is the Duke of Westminster. All of them are in the same place. And that is where Rory Stewart, the geek that was the governor from Iraq, comes from. And that's why Boris wants him to be the London mayor, so that everybody forgets that Boris was a London mayor at the same time as he was earning £250,000 to write 15-minute commentaries on the newspapers. There is Beaufort, Earl of Somerset, Joan Beaufort, Queen Consort of Scots, John Stuart, this is Bonnie Prince Charlie now, and there's the picture of him, with the rotary blades for the fascists in this world. That is the 4 limbs of the swastika are the rotary blades on his head, and that is the swastika sign that is right under your photo in that little box at the top. Okay. Let me see if I can move it up a wee bit.
Swastika itself, I mean, going back and a different angle, etc., was a really was a religious symbol, wasn't it? For
yeah, it's been an icon for Freemasonry all around the world for over 5,000 years. When I toured India on my lecture tour, in every town, on every wall, it was used as their propaganda. I reckon what the meaning of it is. But that is when the fascist dancers get up and dance, they've always got their hands akimbo. The best example of that is actually on Boris Johnson's family tree, and that was a man who he was Cole or something, but that is them parodying the swastika as they dance like an Egyptian. Have you seen that on? Have you seen that one? That's somebody, Betty and Keble, like three ultra skinny Egyptians trying to make the swastika sign with every one of their limbs at the same time.
Right, I haven't seen it. But were you talking about Helmut Kohl, the chap?
No, it's a different one. The original one who made the comedies on the swastika and dancing with it, Max Wall. So the walls, he was Wall, but the walls are on Boris Pfeffel's family tree. Yeah, that's the Nazis, and that is the name means Piper, and that is the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and taking your troops to their deaths in the war like rats. Really, really generous Bullingdon boy. Yeah, laughing at the war dead continually. So there on Donald's side again, we'll keep going. John Stuart, 1st Earl of Athol. And there is the Freemasons sign. Yeah, that unites the whole of the Imperatos all across the world. And everybody is coerced to be a member. And if you release any of the secrets, you're dead in the coffin the following day. Yeah, it's totally corrupted. And
we better be careful then, George.
Yeah, I think that they used to scare me shitless, but now that the gods are giving them accidents, and everybody that gives you abuse ends up in a plaster cast. It's really quite hilarious. We start keeping you should start an archive of who's sworn at you in recent times. But I got punched in the eye the other day in the building that I'm now working in, because all of them are trying to cover up the world's secrets. And the Earls of Home that are the hosts in this region, they are in scams with Lord Condon and G4S. That is the last video I made, and that is why the coronavirus was launched the following week. And there.
Are you okay after being punched in the eye? I mean, I didn't realise that happened.
Yeah, he attacked me, and it's his woman's mother is a doppelganger for Miss Merkel. It's a fucking massive, and the Earls of Home they have had a terrible financial strife in their families. Several of them had to commit suicide, but they're really nice people, and I believe that they are now coming on my side. But I discovered a few months ago that James Hewitt is now married to their daughter.
Okay.
And they've never ever released that to anyone other than Burke's Peerage, and that is where I found it.
James Hewitt, the boyfriend of Princess Di.
Yeah, she's he is the father of Prince Harry.
Okay. That's debatable by some people, but obviously.
No, I've made the video. You can watch it, and it takes you right into Burke's Peerage and shows you how many babies they've got. And he lives in Lifford in Ireland, and Greg Hallett was telling Jim Fetzer at that time that everything that is in the plot is a sound-alike, and that is Max Clifford that worked for MI6. He was the person who got the printers to bind together Greg Hallett's books, and all the pages were missing. Some of them were in the wrong order, and it was the whole of the cover was missing. And that is Jim Fetzer went, oh, that's unheard of in American politics, but that is Max Clifford that is the boss at MI6.
Nice. Max Clifford also, he's a medium.
Yeah, and so James Hewitt lives in Lifford in Ireland. I reckon how close to you that is.
It's up north. I'm on the west coast.
All right,
yeah.
so he's in Ulster, you see.
He'd be in Ulster.
And that is their massive joke that Ulster is the... What is the joke for the Queen's naming? I've told you it several times before, but I can't remember what the joke is. It's...
I need reminding there, George. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they've got a massive mansion called... No, I can't remember it, but it's one of the murders or something, or the terror event at... What was the football crush injury place?
What was the football crush injury place?
Yeah, there was an accident at a football match that killed...
Hillsborough?
That's it. So that is the name of Queenie's mansion in Ulster. And that's why they have so many inquests into Hillsborough, and they're still having them. They had 2 the year I moved from Berwick into Coldstream. But you did not know that?
Well, I knew that... I knew you've spoken about it before, and I just couldn't remember the name. But yes, Hillsborough, you said that before,
Yeah.
that it was named Hillsborough in Ulster. So that's where James Hewitt lives now, is it?
No, he's in Coldstream with the Earls of Home. But that is his ancestral estate in Ireland. If any of it can be believed, you see, that's me telling you that it's like rhyming slang. As long as it makes a sound that gets it vaguely close to the actual history, it doesn't matter whether it's correct or not. So that is Max Clifford that was appointed to the publishing job, and that is Lifford, that is the conspiracy. But because it's on Burke's Peerage, I know that James Hewitt is actually married to the eldest daughter of the Earl of Home, and he's quite a nice guy. I've now sussed out who he is when he walks past, and more they want to converse, and it's but the other ones, the yens that are connected to Lancashire, you'll understand it once I get to the bottom of this. So that is where John of Gaunt came from. That is the Wars of the Roses. The red rose is Lancaster, and the white rose is York, and that is the start of these families. So we've got to... The Stuarts are Elizabeth Stuart, Elizabeth Gordon, Countess of Sutherland, and there is Lady Jane Gordon. Then you get the jailer in the Porridge comedy, that is Donald Mackay. There's Mackay, and there is the Ronnie Barker, the comedian. So his partner was Balfour Corbett, and I was born on the same estate as him in the Borders. That is the Balfours that partitioned Palestine, and that is the folk at the bottom of the family tree for Hillary. Wow. So there is, and that's why the Mackays are in all the comedies, and all that. They lived in the Outer Isles, and we used to rent cottages from them. And when we went to live with them in the rental cottages in the summer, it was absolutely beautiful. But every time we went there were days in the week when they got blotto and pissed. And there's umpteen of them. They call them Kaiser Mackay in my hometown, and all of them are afflicted with massive pathologies. That is, Kaiser Mackay has got spondylitis, and that means he cannot stand up straight, and it's been like that for the whole of his life. And they are the bloodline that descend to this lot. Yeah, so next is Anna Munro and Isabella Mackay, Alexander Mackay. I think they're from Skye originally. Robert Mackay, Anne Suze Mackay, Mary Mackay, and there's Donald MacLeod. And very soon now, Catherine MacLeod, Alexander MacLeod, Malcolm MacLeod, Mary Ann MacLeod, and then you get Donald John Trump Sr. Yeah, this time, because it's the media that have published this, they don't have Christ in his middle name. Yeah, but that is Donald. He is a draft dodger for Vietnam, and he said at that time, sleeping around was my personal Vietnam. His kids were in my class at Otago University in New Zealand.
So, all these people, I mean, there's so many people saying that Trump is evil and the Antichrist, he's just a puppet and all the rest of it. And there are loads of people saying that Trump is a wonderful, wonderful man and he's draining the swamp and he's clearing it all out and he's arresting people without us knowing about it.
Well,
What's going on?
It's an open secret that already that he is in the 5 mafia families of New York.
Okay. So it's nothing good then.
No, I don't believe so. His dad is on that list. So he's from the mother's side. So his dad's not on the listings at all. But Fred Christ Trump, that was married to Mary Ann McLeod, was a brothel owner in the Yukon Gold Rush in America. And there is the sign for the Trump brothel in that place. Then we get...
George, because my listeners can't see it.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the tree. But if your listeners, if they listen to this and they go onto my webpage, all of it will make perfect sense, and everybody will have to get pissed in the family tree that night all across the globe. So there we've now go to the top of Hillary's bloodline.
Okay.
So she's John Beaufort. That is another Beaufort, Countess of Westmoreland. Eleanor Percy, Countess of Northumberland, Henry Percy, 3rd Earl of Northumberland, Margaret Gascoigne, and that is Paul Gascoigne, and he actually appeared as a doppelganger or as the real deal in this high street this week when I was telling this story to Andy Devine. That is Gasser that used to play for Newcastle United.
Yeah, brilliant player. Just a shame about his
so he had affairs with Lady Jane Percy and with the Duchess of Roxburgh, who's my feudal landlord, and I talked about that bloodline in our last interview.
Yeah.
And I've still not written to her. I've got so much on my plate. There's Margaret Ogle. Those are the relatives of the beautiful and ancient claimant to the Scottish throne, the British throne, that was the Ogilvy family of the Aberdeen region, and that is Angus Ogilvy, and I think he was a star in The Saint on the TV. Remember?
That was Ethan Ogilvy.
Can you remember the Saint program
I do remember the Saint. Roger Moore was the original Saint.
Yeah, and that was the Longshanks actor was in that movie too, in the televisual equivalent. I can't remember what his name was as the actor. So there's Dorothy Ogle, Lady Grey, and that will be Jane Grey that is on the list for Henry VIII, I think.
Yes, Lady Jane Grey.
Yeah, and there's Isabel Grey. There's Margaret Rodham, and that is the beginning of Hillary's influence. That is Ida Grey, then John Rodham, and the other family tree will explain why those names are so important. There is now the link to Rothschild. There's the dripping blood red hexagram for Rothschild. So John Philip Drumpft, with spelled MPFT, married Juliana Maria Drumpft, maiden name Roddenroth, and the parent is John Rodham, and that's Hillary Rodham Clinton. That is her real name, and the middle name has an H in it instead of 2 D's. There is Johannes Sebastian Trump, Susanna Margareta Drumpft, and that is Chancellor Cole's ancestor. Yeah, the Cole is Susanna Margarita's maiden name. There is the Rothschild hexagram turned to blue after they partitioned Palestine, and you understand that massive joke already. they are not Jewish. They're nothing to do with Jerusalem or the Holy Lands, other than they have brutalized them for wealth and oil. But the Rothschilds they are Ashkenazi Jews from Ukraine, and that is away across, almost as far away as Macedonia, where Alexander the Great got to, building his massive empire across Europe and North Africa. So there is Jonathan Rodham, Joseph Rodham, Hugh Simpson Rodham, and that will be Mrs. the hermaphrodite. Yeah.
How do you know she is an hermaphrodite?
No, that is Simpson is the middle name. She was married 3 times, and if you listen to Greg Hallett's stories, it's absolutely hilarious. Hugh Ellsworth Rodham, and then we get now to Hillary Clinton on one side, and right next to her is a man called President Harry Truman, 1945 to 1953, and a picture of Palestine. Jerusalem and the Jewish nations are not on it at all.
No.
And that is Syria and Lebanon, and the Sinai Desert, and that is the title for the photos. But let me read it out. Harry Truman, he took a $2 million bung to partition Palestine, from Israel, and that is the decimation of the Arab ownership of that land. And I've got examples for all of that, and the Arabs are now beggars almost. I've got listings of what has happened to the Jewish billionaires. They're doing okay because they've got access to America's aid in the oil wealth that used to be the Palestinian. It's totally treasonous, and Truman took a $2 million bung to get that done. So that's us to the bottom of the tree, and it's all explained on a video below that on my website. What shall we do next?
Well, really, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One of them is we've just been talking about the family tree, etc. But you've mentioned Greg Hallett a couple of times and stories he told. I need to know, and people need to know, is Greg Hallett alive or dead?
Well, the man that you showed me the video for that has gotten, I think it was 700,000 hits in just 6 days, which is impossible. Yeah, that does not happen, even when Jim Fetzer was managing it. Yeah.
Well, people put, silly cat videos up and it gets millions of views. So, a girl putting her makeup on and they get millions of views. It's a shame, but obviously that's what happens. So, is this a cat putting his makeup on, and is he Greg Hallett or not?
Well, I believe that Greg Hallett that has had tried to have interviews with you has issued me with death threats. The woman that tried to murder Greg Hallett first is Lawrence DeMello. She has given me death threats in the same hotel that I'm sitting in now. Yeah, that is Lawrence DeMello, the practicing witch that gave Greg Hallett, the real one, kidney stones. When she talked about him, she said that he's still alive, but he's a mental case. So you've got all sorts of versions of it, and you can see that the one that is claiming to be the king is very articulate. But I get loads of my messages from the gods, and that was the declaration that morning that Christopher Martin descends from the Piso family. But when I get Greg Hallett coming up in my dreams, all of it is azure blue. I think he's either changed sides or they actually topped him, and I believe that is why the books cannot be released. Yeah, if that book had not got all those, let me explain why that book has to be burnt by everyone that supports Rothschild on this earth, and I'm the only one that's not in that team.
And then explain that. Yeah.
So that is what they described in the book was how to take over the world, a right royal con, with a picture of Adolf Hitler and his full cousin, Queen Elizabeth II, on her Piso horse on the front cover.
Right.
Since I started making the fuss and proclaiming that he's never written to me for 2 years, Fetzer agreed with me until we got 18 months into that period, and by then he had started to make interviews with a new one, but none of it was on the old topics. And if you look at the archive for his history and the videos he made, they were absolutely spellbinding. The murders in the River Spree tunnels and all the genealogy and all the pictures, that is why the books are ever so difficult to publish unless you've already done what Greg did, was to get permission to be able to send PDFs to your potential customers, and I've got them all in my listings. So I believe that the Rothschilds got him, and that would be Queenie's instructions too, because she's on the front page, and it's really embarrassing if you're proclaiming in a published audience, like he had a massive global hearing, and that is, she was sat on the horse, and it's in the Horse Guards parade, and that is the Coldstream Guards, I think, that are all around the room that I'm now talking in. This is home to the Coldstream Guards.
Okay. So in a nutshell, and I've got to put this straight because still I'm confused. So Greg Hallett, the one that you knew, the one that you communicated with, the one that was on Jim Fetzer's show and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
You think is either in a mental home or is dead.
Well, DeMello told me that he was a mental case, but she's an absolute liar. She's now profiting from the selling of his books.
Okay.
And she was mentioned specifically as a character in his story. She tried to poison him the same weekend that they put Prince Philip in a hospital to try and divert the attention from it. And they were, at that time, when he was hospitalised, he was on the island that is Mont Saint-Michel off the French coast, yes, looking for the royal marks that would make him a king, and still continuing to support the cause of Marcus Manuel, who was the murdered claimant as the only legitimate baby that Queen Victoria ever had. But that was a secret birthing, and that is why they had to kill Marcus Manuel, and then they had to make all those bogus movies. So Peter Sellers is actually the bastard child of Lord Mountbatten, who was murdered by Prince Philip, because he's the one that recommended that Prince Philip marries Queenie. Prince Philip is a Deutsche Dunst Nazi, and he attended the Nazi rallies within a few months of the war breaking out. And he met Hitler that weekend, and his daughter died in a fatal plane crash. And I've made videos on all of that, and all of that was around the launch of the coronavirus, and then it was on how the BBC became the propagandists for Queenie, and that is why they called it Corona is coronation, and that is the BBC propaganda event.
Well, the BBC have been propaganda machines since its inception.
Yeah, so Nicholas Witchell was the boss, but he's now been replaced by that woman Koonsberg that I told you all about in the last video. I've never seen her on the social media again.
Nice.
Yeah, that she's the Italian birth, but they're all from German descent.
So who is this? I sent you a video, it's over an hour long, of Greg Hallett, in inverted commas, being interviewed. Is that Greg Hallett, or is that someone pretending to be?
I don't think anybody can know with the power of the Queen of England's propaganda. Yeah, that will be a plant and representative for her. They're not going to risk giving up the throne. Yeah, when they had the genealogical data for giving up the throne, then all of it made perfect sense, as did Greg taking the case to them Yeah, and all of it was blown apart by the Queen of England's MI6 in the form of Max Clifford.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so the books were never that last book. The feature of that last book is that is the decimation of the European nobility by the Rothschild parents of Queen Vic's bastard children. Yeah, that is the King of Kings, and that is Lionel Nathan Rothschild, and I forget what the other one was. But if we went to the other topic now, shall I go now to...
We haven't finished with that one though. We will, but I haven't finished with that one yet.
Yeah, keep going.
People need to know. Greg Hallett, the one that's now saying he's Greg Hallett and going and doing interviews, etc., he is saying that he is the real King of England, and that's why, right now, the Queen has abdicated.
Well, the old one said that before he was murdered.
You do feel that he was murdered and this is a doppelganger or a...
Yes, because of it, all those videos that have been taken off the internet, they were absolutely spellbinding. They wowed Jim Fetzer. He's bailed out for 6 or 9 months now.
Okay. No, it's just I've been asked by so many different people, is George right? I've seen Greg Hallett has done a video yesterday, so how the hell can he be right?
If you want to, I'll play you the video of Miss DeMello, the practicing witch, that poisoned Greg Hallett. He wrote the story. I've got the video.
No worries. No, I believe you. So I just wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth as such.
She said, if I want you dead, you will not be breathing tomorrow morning. She said that to me on air in this venue. And she's a practicing British journalist, and she's now selling Hallett's books and claiming that he's mental.
She's now selling Hallett's books but claiming he's mental.
Yeah, so they've already sold Stalin Was Hitler's something or other, and several of them have gone out into print. They're getting the remnants of what he would have got, but they actually dismembered his monetary system and made him impoverished.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I remember all the shit he was going through, and now I looked at this video yesterday, and this guy looks like Greg Hallett, but he has a very posh beard, he looks very well.
Yeah. The facial structure is slightly different. The other one was plumper than that, a round face. But yeah, I've wasted so much of my time on it, I don't want to do any more.
Yeah,
but if I show you the pictures of why they're so concerned about the genealogy, yeah, that is they are siring the babies that become their enemies in the next global war. Yeah, that is the Rothschilds' trick.
Crazy, isn't it?
Well, it's not crazy if you're the world's richest family, like Rothschild are.
Well, I think they're insane. I think they are they don't realise how spiritually fucked they are, really.
Well, they're doing okay financially.
Financially, maybe, but, okay.
They've rendered me homeless for 7 or 8 years now, and I believe that they might have topped my wife too. She trained under their thrall, and as soon as I turned on them, did you see my posts on Facebook?
I've seen your recent ones. I don't know.
The ones with the yellow Rothschild pox.
No, I haven't.
So let me show you some of the pictures that drive them nuts.
Okay.
Glorious Revolution, the Shin. Now you and John helped me make a video on that. I was in Dundee at that time, and since then I've been in Coldstream ever since. And there is your picture and John's picture, and in between there's a Nazi called Boris having a yawn. And that is on the second page, I think, of my website. So Glorious Revolution, the Shin, how to take over the world. And I'll just pan down it. So there they're beheading Charles I. There is the Duke of Buccleuch and Queensberry, who's come twice to see me in Coldstream because he sold Scotland to the United Kingdom. the third cousin of the Queen in Dalkeith. There he is with Nicholas Sturgeon. All of them are Rothschilds out of the cigar tube, like Alex Salomon Rothschild. Yeah, that's Alex Salmond. All of it is the piss take. And there is Oliver Cromwell, 20 degrees from Emma Nea, 19 degrees from Herbert Tardy, and 12 degrees from Victoria of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. So he is 3 degrees from the Queen of England, and that is the Duke of Buccleuch and Queensberry. And the doctor that sectioned me is in the Buccleuch clan.
Wow. Nice.
Dr. Ian Fingland.
Nice man, nice man.
Yeah, and he trained first as a policeman.
Okay.
And the other one that accompanied him is called Basil Switzer, and that is already a master mason in the Masons, and that is the cover of the Bank of International Settlements, which belongs to Lord Jacob Rothschild and a young man called Prince Charles, that you might have heard of, who murdered his wife too.
Well, yes, there's a lot of skullduggery going on in these royal families.
You bet. So here are this is from Greg Hallett's original PDF, which he sent personally to me, before they started claiming that everybody was dying in the venues. Never before have the cons of history been so clearly exposed. Germany took over Great Britain in a 25-year shoot, a tactical exercise without troops between 1689 and 1714, 1 year before the Jacobite Wars started. This is the launch of the Bank and the Church of England and the Protestant-only monarchs of England. Yeah, that is the families that were largely of Germania. Yeah, they're not descended and they're not in the legitimate family tree because blind Prince George of Cumbria is the only legitimate lover that Queen Vic ever had. But this is even before then. This is 1689 to the Jacobite Wars. And then I've got now posted on this page, today it means that all federal banks globally are, and now that you've heard my story about the family tree, you should understand it a little bit more. So all the federal banks globally are owned by private individuals named Rothschild, Trump Heller, Rodenroth, Rockefeller, Lehman, Clinton, Heinz, most of whom descend from John of Gaunt. And there is a picture of John of Gaunt, and he has a doppelganger in Coldstream, walking his tiny little dog in the pretense that that is the gods that they have subdued on the ends of their lead. They're really asking for trouble, and because they've got a couple of people that are prepared to speak out against them, that is why the sun god is beginning to take sides. And I believe that will be a massive part in what the outcome to the whole of the game is. So there is the family tree that you've just seen.
It's interesting as well that you mentioned the coronavirus, and the sun kills the coronavirus. So that is I suppose the remedy of getting rid of the coronavirus if it existed as they
Well, that's right. It strengthens your immune system,
Yes.
And that's why it's nonsense that you're supposed to stay indoors to stay healthy. And if you've got doctors that were assassinators and policemen, then they're likely to be the people that read the Riot Act. Yeah, so let's go down and see what else we've got. So there's How to Take Over the World, now out of print by Greg Hallett. Yeah, out of print, limited availability. Yeah, and what's happened in all of the book world is that Amazon, have I told you that Jeff Bezos at Amazon is Stalin's descendant?
I think you did mention that.
Yeah,
before.
so that was a video before we had the fallout, I think. And that is crazy Bezos Dugashvili and that is the resignation of Keza Dugdale, who's also a Dugashvili, and she's seventh cousin to fascist Tavistock-trained David Cameron. I've got all his images, and the man that's imaged with him at Tavistock is a guy called Barry Clapham, and he is a friend of mine now, and he's a friend of Princess Anne. He's given me Princess Anne's phone number, but I have not got the bottle.
Just a horse riding within the big round. A lot of people have asked me, they've been listening to a lot of interviews you've done, and I know this is repeating stuff and all the rest of it, but can you explain to my listeners, what is Tavistock? What is this place?
So it's a mind control centre, and it's massive. Even in colonial days, the people that trained at Tavistock became the Imperatos in South Africa and all over colonial Africa. And that is massive on my website too, because that is the Club of 1001. All of the founders of that is the families that became Bin Laden, and they are on the boards for George W. Bush. That is the folk that brought down the Twin Towers, are board members in the Bush corporates that were trading with the enemy as war criminals. And that is the Peter Eyre story. That is massive, and it links all of those escapees from Europe into the massive Aztecan lands that are Argentina and places like that, and all of them were exposed to drug addiction plans by the British Royals globally. And that is the Eva Peron, her husband, all of them are in the nobility somehow, but she descends to the folk that used to come and live with Mrs. Thatcher at 10 Downing Street, and that is Pinochet. And that is the weekend when they launched the Boston bombings, so that no one would want to be on the streets the weekend later when Mrs. Thatcher was going to get buried. Pinochet was in town that day. It's massive, and that is the Stadia killings were commissioned by the CIA in North America, and that is George W. Bush and his dad's position as head of the CIA before they became the president. And that is the killing of John F. Kennedy by Permindex, which was run by Lord Beaverbrook and a man called Winston Churchill, who is the parent of that woman there, called Queen Elizabeth II. Because of the stories that the real Greg Hallett told. And I've got other bloodline trees now, and it means that all the folk that are celebrities in Britain that have a slightly Germanic name, they are all descended from the same families in Hesse-Kassel and Battenberg. That's David Attenborough, and all the videos that we've already made. And so it's a very controversial, but let me just keep going down, and I'll then remind you of the massive incursions. So my favourite movie about the Rothschilds and the kings at that time is that one featuring Helen Mirren and the George III character that was the longest lived monarch in Britain before Queenie came along. And that is, so in Greg Hallett's PDFs that he sent to me personally, thereafter time was altered so that no one would know whether a British royal was killed causing a policy change or as the result of a policy change. And there is Slip-them atropinics, that's the drugs that make your memory fail, memory lapsing drugs. Analyse the stools and let them die, blue bloods with syphilis, that's the royal pox. King George III and his queens Sophia, Helen Mirren, Nigel Hawthorne. So that's Helen Mirren is the queen and Nigel Hawthorne is George III. who I think reigned for 50 years exactly. He's the one that is in...
What's the name of that film, George?
Sorry?
What's the name of that movie?
The Induced Madness of King George I. I can't remember. But if you look up...
I know there was a movie, The Madness of King George. So maybe
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, all them famous Hollywood actresses, and the man that did the stool analysis, he used to travel into a place called Berkhamsted, where I got my first job, and he was a commuter on the railways that I used. And the last time I saw him, he got stuck in the doorway. The train started to move away. That is, so King George III was kept in a permanent state of madness, drug-induced madness, by the Rothschilds for 55 years, so that the German Freemasons, who had taken over the British crown, could create the United States in their image. And the image may contain two people standing, hat and text. So let's just keep going. The Jewish laws of Babylon have now become the uniform commercial code and current law. Dozens of Piso-inspired religions in North Africa and the Med, and that include the armies that fought against NATO's armies, and Britain's armies and Palestine's armies, and all of it is infighting. So the bit that I missed below King George is that because he was running the colonial efforts in Africa, South Africa, Canada, all across Europe, if they won the wars of independence and became a commonwealth, then the country that they had beaten had to pay taxes, and that is taxes right up to 2050. And I now understand by rereading Greg Hallett's analytical writings on that that is one of the biggest things. It means that war is permanently written into the future of the entire world, because the people that have to get the funds to pay their conquerors then have to take on another weaker nation, and that is the killing and the brutalization of every country and every continent in the world. All of the neighbours that get beaten then have to take on the neighbours that have no weapons at all, and it's totally tragic, and Greg appreciated that, and it's very much part of his story, and the British monarchy get the take from that because it's their colony.
Yes.
They get the oil, they get the gold, they get the diamonds. Gold, oil and diamonds is their god.
Yeah, it makes sense. And land, so they certainly own a lot of land that they shouldn't.
Yeah, that's right. So the Queen is second only to the Pope.
Yeah.
So, the Jewish laws of Babylon have now become the uniform commercial code and current law. Dozens of Piso-inspired religions are now all over North Africa and the Mediterranean. That is the Druze armies, and there's another set of... There's a country called the Man, but we'll see it later down on, I think. Clerics, Intel, Special Operations, London Olympics, the police create misery, we'll see that lower down. Lord Condon is a G4S director, and that is the London Olympics scam, when they laughed at all of the war dead for the Allied countries, and that is Mr. Bean, that opened the Olympics, was the war correspondent for Iraq. That is...
people say that the London Olympics opening ceremony not only had what you've just spoken about, but also was showing everyone what was going to happen with hospital beds and coronavirus and all the rest of it.
Oh, I didn't. That was years ago, though. It was.
No, that was this one with Mr. Bean, and then after that they had.
I think it was 2012.
Yeah. It's not you, yeah. Seems like yesterday to me.
Well, but that was Quentin Bryce was the Governor General, and I had the videos that pinned her. She had a massive salary, but she's the one that told the world mistakenly, yet thinking that no one would notice, that Charles Bean was the war correspondent for Gallipoli. 80,000 people died in the trenches in their own shit. That is the colonial armies, and that is the tragic. I thought that you would have been aware of it, but the Pogues' songs about Gallipoli will bring tears to your eyes as a compassionate man. That is them laughing at the taking the limbs of the soldiers who return, and they're never able to shag their, what is the name of the woman that they sing about? Waltzing Matilda.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the Matilda of northern France that was married into the Plantagenet lineage. There's Intel Special Ops. So I've got page after page after page of Israel's intel and army operations, and you should see the number of agents that they've got working all over the world. I'll show you the listings for that if I can find it.
Yeah, okay.
But let me get down to the bottom of this page. So there is the Jews control the Freemasons control the police, and the three specialise in misery. How to take over the world, a right royal con, and there are now the Warner brothers. They are 4 chief master masons in America, in California, in Hollywood, and that is the video that they ban every video I make which has got the war criminals in it, and they are the biggest war criminals that allowed Kaiser Wilhelm, who's the great-grandson, the Kaiser Wilhelm II in World War II is the grandson of Queen Victoria, right through the war, and it was the same, obviously, for the other parental member of the Kaiser's line. Yeah, and there he is. Queen Victoria had 9 bastard children by Rothschild sires during a bigamous marriage to homosexual Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg, whose killing was labelled pneumonia. That is what the real Greg Hallett told us, and that is his image. There is Lionel